Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall, and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I am so pleased to welcome today Pip Black from Frame. Back in 2009, Pip co-founded Frame alongside her business partner, Joan Murphy, with the simple mantra that getting fit shouldn't be a chore. In 2007, before fitness was a thing, they were both living the fast-paced London life, loved a good party, and probably burning the candle at both ends. The fitness offering at the time was very much geared towards weight loss or feelings of guilt. If you'd eaten too much, spending hours on a treadmill, going nowhere, counting calories lost, and wishing it would end. Over a gin or two, it hit them as soon as you became an adult, exercise and movement changed from being the highlight of your day to the thing that dreaded all day. They wanted to make exercise fun again. They wanted to create a place that was for everyone, no matter if they hadn't worked out since PE or were a top athlete. 15 years and 5 Frame locations later, offering over 1,300 classes a week across their London studios, there's always a class, no matter what your mood, that will fit into your day. Since starting Frame, both Pip and Joan have navigated the other job title of motherhood. Welcome, Pip. I'm so excited. And can I just say a bit of a hard relate to that whole feelings of weight loss if you've eaten too much. I think we kind of forget now that like back in the 2000s, that was definitely such a toxic culture towards guilt and eating and exercising to burn it off. That was such a bad time period for that, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was. And I still think there's bits of it kind of, that still infiltrated through the industry now. But yeah, I think we are so lucky, and being a mum, like being able to hope that my daughter will grow up in a space that's much sort of softer, much more positive towards movement and exercise. Yeah, I mean, I've always moved a lot. I've always done lots of sport and done it because I've loved it. But back in the noughties, if I'd asked a friend to come for a run with me on a Sunday morning, they would have laughed in my face. You just didn't run. You were sporty and you did sport, but that was like a specific sort of segment, or you went to the gym and maybe sat in the sauna after you'd walked on the treadmill.
I mean, I still do that.
It's funny actually. Saunas are definitely on the way back, aren't they? After a little hiatus. But yeah, no, that in terms of movement being something that you look forward to and enjoyed, like it just really wasn't the case. Fast forward 15, 20 years, it's totally changed, which is amazing. And I'd like to hope that we played our little part in making that happen.
Yeah, and just before we start, I'm just totally going to fangirl you unashamedly, because I feel like Frame is really geared towards, which so many gyms aren't, geared towards people who my exercise, which is dance-based. I was very much into dancing. It's such good exercise for you. I now love bar and reformer Pilates. And when I got made redundant in 2019 just when I'd had my first child in quite a bad place, my second day of redundancy, before I was like, right, I've got to plan what I'm going to come back to them with, I was like, I'm going to go to Frame and get myself in the right headspace. You're so attached, you're bringing me joy.
Do you know what, like, it's funny because you think of like, we're predominantly female, but like I would say, like, when you look at sort of the population, probably at least 50% of girls dance at some point in their lives, and then they just stop. And I guess even when I was younger,
that was me. Yeah.
And then you don't have anything to do. So I mean, you do, but like in terms of you love that type of movement where you're flowing and moving to the music and it's just pure joy. And then you kind of get to a point where everything suddenly becomes very structured and you're going to do like 12 reps of this thing and it's no longer actually fun. We do try to kind of make sure that majority of our sort of classes are very much linked to music and sort of being a bit more free and working in all planes of motion, because that's obviously really good for us as well. And it's not just work, it's actually that mobility and stretching and kind of opening up the body as well. And dance, as you say, like I think often gets forgotten as such an amazing type of exercise. You look at professional dancers and God, they're like the fittest people you'll ever see in what they can do with their bodies, because they have that flexibility and the strength. So it's absolutely incredible.
Well, ballet dancers do reformer Pilates regularly. And no, and that was only something I realized this year actually on my journey of healing and joy was that when I was 18, I stopped and I never should have just stopped. I could like lower I went to uni, I was like, I'm going to focus on this and not dance. And so it's such a joyful time period to be like, I can do this again.
We actually like, I mean, when I'm old now, but like, you know, when I was at uni or in my 20s, we went out dancing in the evenings. Like you went out and you danced in a nightclub until 5 a.m. and it was
Yeah, that was good
joyful. And
times.
I feel like
Was
that
joyful.
also doesn't really happen anymore. Like apart from the, you know, once a year at Glastonbury when I burn like, I think it was like I walked 128 kilometers in like 4 days.
Amazing. Great that you can track that now with your festival time.
Yeah, I was like, that was a great weekend. I didn't track anything, by the way. I only know that's the only time of the year where I like even look at the like health thing on my phone. I'm just so intrigued. But you walk a lot at Glastonbury. But you do realize actually at somewhere like Glastonbury that when you are just dancing and moving, like what an amazing um workout that is.
Yeah, and happy vibes.
Definitely happy. Definitely very happy.
I love this. I could talk about this all day. But let's have a little bit of a look at what was your career before Frame? Because you started Frame like quite young in your 20s, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was 24 when we started Frame.
Wow.
So my pre-Frame career is limited. So I studied business at university. So I went to the University of Bath and I did a business degree there. And as part of that, you actually did two sort of 6-month placements. So first one, I went to PwC and became an auditor, which I realized was not for me. But they did pay me an awful lot of money, considering I was 19 and had no qualifications, which was great.
Sounds great.
And then the second placement, I went out to Australia and I worked at this Institute of Sport in Australia. And that was in the lead up to the Athens Olympics. And that was an incredible experience. But on the total other end of the spectrum, like got paid nothing. But the work was brilliant. So I sort of was looking after like the PR of the athletes that were going to be going out there. And it was really amazing to see that at that time, Australia, in terms of like their Institute of Sports, etc., was sort of, you know, up there, best in the world. And the facilities and stuff that they have out there were next level. So yeah, it was a really, really interesting experience. I've always played sport. I've always loved sport and movement. And then when I came back from there, I worked at Mars in their marketing department for a period. We actually did a big project for them whilst at uni. And then I went into advertising. So I worked at a place called Profero, which was one of the sort of the big digital agencies that were about back in the days where digital was like a new and crazy thing. And like you had all the big advertising agencies like your BBH, your Widens, your Ogilvy's, and then they would like have us as their like tag on to deliver the digital element of what they were doing. And it was a really, really exciting period because everything was new. So every week you'd get a new sort of piece of software, or it'd be like, oh, now we've got MPUs, which was a big thing at the time. So like we can do video. So it was quite groundbreaking, and it was fun. Like, I mean, it was an amazing time to be in that industry. It was hard work. You worked very late and you partied very hard. But the people I met at that business, you know, I'm still very good friends with a lot of them now.
Oh, amazing.
And do pretty amazing things. It was, a very interesting group of people that I met during that period of my life. But I think one of the things that's interesting is like for me, like I always want to be sort of what's new, what's next, like, you know, being part of that zeitgeist and being able to sort of change things and understand like what's going to be the next big thing. And being in that position, I was able to sort of see from outside of the fitness industry that there was just this huge opportunity to do something where we could create like an aspirational brand that, you know, was lifestyle and kind of fashion and, you know, wasn't fitness, because fitness, and this actually, I did have a stint at a place called Octagon, which is a sports marketing agency, but it was really just like, I was like, oh wow, this is so backwards. Like, and it was so backwards. Everything to do with sort of fitness and sport, it was still very much like you get a big like banner that you're going to hang up from the bridge and you're going to like do like, you know, discount off memberships before you start, or you're going to have like, it was all sponsorship of like athletes, like golf trips and stuff. So it just felt very, very backwards. And then going into digital advertising, you were like, oh wow, like, okay, this is what where it's happening, and this is what the cool brands are doing, and everyone is being innovative on a daily basis. So I was able to kind of like take that across into the fitness industry to start doing things differently and challenging the status quo.
It's great. And I guess there wasn't the whole Instagram influencer, sports influencer thing going on either. So I kind of hadn't hit that point where it's like, oh, working out is cool again, kind of thing.
That was actually, Instagram, I don't think it even existed when we opened. It ran, interesting fact, the Twitter launch party happened at Frame Shoreditch.
Oh, it happened there first. Oh, wow.
We had the launch party here, and
amazing.
They weren't, you couldn't have like a real bar, so you had to do the one where you like bought the like raffle tickets to get your drinks. But yeah, that
the loopholes.
Yeah, it was definitely back in the days of Skype when we launched Frame. So yeah, we've been going a while, and to be honest, I'm very thankful and grateful that we were able to launch in a time before really social media is what it is now, because it's a confusing world out there. And yeah, I think there's so much content now. That it's very easy to kind of get lost in it. And you also, like, as a brand, like, you spend way too much time and effort and energy like working on, you know, thinking about this. Like, when really, when we first launched, all you thought about was like, when the customer walked through that door, how do you make sure they have a bloody amazing time? And that was kind
excellent
of
customer experience.
Yeah, exactly. And now, you know, you have to spend so much more time thinking about what content you're going to create, which is, you know, is great. But at the same time, you're like, actually you just want people to come and do the classes and experience it in real life, rather than being able to see it like a great video. I
think that's such
all this amazing content, and then you go to the place and you're like, oh, that's not what I saw.
Yes, that is or they're not as friendly as I thought they would be. I think that's definitely not a frame, just to clarify, something I've experienced. But I think you raised an excellent point there that is relevant for any business, is that you are focusing on the customer experience. And actually, if any community or anything I go to, how often do I get taught about customer experience and how to make that excellent versus my personal brand, which is whereas that might get people through the door, but they're not going to stay for that, are they?
No, you can't. Yeah, I mean, what we do is customer experience and making sure that people have a great time, because what we need is for people to return. And that was when we started Frame back in a very long time ago, as we discussed.
Which one was your first location?
Shoreditch.
Yeah,
so Shoreditch. So we found this site, and basically I quit my job first because Joan earned more money than me, so I like slept on her sofa, and
it's like a relationship, isn't it?
It really was. And yeah, I used to like cycle around London on my bike and looking for properties. Obviously, like, all the men that looked after all of the property in London were like, who are you and why do you think that you can like get a lease on like 5,000 square foot? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, we're so naive. Again, like, great being young and naive, because
do you think so? Because I think I've heard this before on podcasts where women have started stuff when they're young and naive and loved that point. I think I was the complete opposite and needed to spend years growing in confidence. But do you think that's what made you get over the, you feel that you just had all...
I would do it now. In fact, I wouldn't. I don't have the energy, but also, yeah, it's high risk and it is a lot of work. And like, I really think that Joan and I sort of made it as such because we literally threw our hearts and bodies and souls into this place. Like, we worked here 7 days a week, and we made those relationships with all those customers, and we still have lots of customers who have literally been coming to Frame for like 15 years. Now I have kids and I have other things that I have to consider. I just don't know I don't think I could do it. Like, I don't think it'd be physically possible to put as much love into it as we did, and as
it needed, definitely at that stage. Yeah. And exactly. How did you get the funding for your first place then? Did you get loans or?
So we got a business loan. So we were very lucky because we managed to get our loan from the bank about 4 months before the crash in 2008. We were, that's how old we are. So we opened during the like recession, and we used to actually at the beginning have a lot of people that had just been made redundant or like were out of work that would come to Frame because they were like,
oh, it's a thing. We should all share redundancy stories and go into Frame.
So yeah, we got a loan, and I, you know, like it blows my mind, like we, you know, how cheaply we managed to do it. And you know, like I was actually talking to someone earlier today that a lot of boutique fitness brands that have come into this space since have really messed up the market by just spending such a ridiculous amount of money on the fit out of spaces, to the point where that's now sort of expected. But from a business perspective, it doesn't actually work. Like you don't make enough money running a fitness studio to be able to like ever pay that back. Like, do you know what I mean? So
they're trying to compete with the big gyms that are now like high spec. Do you mean that sort of things?
It's really distorted the market because everyone expects, you know, a cold towel or like, you know, luxury showers, and you know, like lovely, we'd all love that, but like if we're going to do that, then you have to like then pay like £30 for your class, and obviously people don't. So,
and you probably need that membership model as well, which you guys have, but you don't. You can, like, I drop into my classes because I don't live in town. You have that, exactly. Which is amazing to have because you don't get that in many places.
Yeah, so you can just drop in and pay as you go, and that's actually been from day one. Like one of the kind of key things when we were starting Frame was that we were looking at business models from outside the industry. So back then, and you picture this sort of time back in 2007 when we started coming up with the idea, like it literally was like gyms, and you had to pay for a year. You had to join like for a year, like still. It was, you had a year's membership, and you'd go to the gym and you'd get a little tour. I don't know if this was. And then you
definitely still have it.
You like had like little rooms where you'd go and sit down with like the membership manager, and they'd like cross out the joining fee, and they'd be like, for you can have the joining fee. Like, oh, no one else is getting that, are they?
No, it's just for me.
But it was so rigid, and you had to sign up, and then no one went. And they have, and I know this because I've worked with some people from within the gym industry since, and they call it waking the dead. So basically they don't email you. So if you're not coming, like, whereas like we would be like, you haven't come, please come back, they would be like, don't touch them, they are paying money and they're not coming, and this is
let's not remind them they're paying us.
Exactly. So it's all of these kinds of things were like, Joan and I were like, this is totally wrong. Obviously, like those people that did that probably making loads more money than we are. But like, I feel like we like, you know, really are trying to do business in the right way. And we wanted to make sure that people come to Frame because they want to come to Frame. Like, so this was us, we were trying to totally like, you know, knock those negative connotations linked to exercise on the head. We're like, you know, like actually we believe in our product so much that we're going to make it pay as you go, because we believe that people, like, even though they're not tied into like a contract, they will come back because they had a good time and they want to come. And people thought we were absolutely crazy. And actually, like, going back to the question about bank loans, etc., that was like the one thing that sort of very much came out like, but what's your membership revenue? And we were like, well, we're not doing that. Like, we're just going to pay when they come to the class. And people did. And they, like, back then, everything was £10, and literally just people would just chuck tenors at us in the way in. And it did work, and people realized it was fun and they did enjoy it. And then we actually did have to introduce memberships because people wanted to come so much, but then suddenly paying like, you know, £10 every day of the week became quite a lot. So that's when we sort of introduced the membership concept to allow people to come more, rather than the opposite way. So yeah, but we also looked at, so ASOS was really big then. It was just like the launch of sort of a lot of online shopping and things. So we're like, well, how can you buy your clothes online but you can't book a fitness class online? That's crazy. So again, like there was no technology that allowed that to happen. So we actually, for about 6 months, people would like think they were booking into a class, but actually they would just be emailing us, and then in the back into the class on the software. And then
I love that, how people think that. I think that's still relevant now. Thinks that everything's so slick behind the scenes, or everyone else is, and it's not.
Yeah, it's not at all, is it? But yeah, in the background we'd just be like, oh. And then we built our own back end system, and it's actually only, I'd say, about now when there are now softwares out there that you can almost like off the shelf software that have the functionality, and not even all of it, but like the functionality that we had like thought of that we needed back like at least 10 years ago. And at that point we just had to build our own, which is, you know, of course its own trauma.
Yeah. Trauma.
I'm definitely not going into the booking software industry ever again. Um, but yeah,
That's good to know. That's the reason for why you didn't do your own software to sell.
yeah, it's tricky.
Mm.
But yeah, so we were very much like we want to change the way that this industry operates.
Mm.
I think it was quite fundamental that we were both female and young, and we both weren't in the fitness industry, so we actually had no idea like how the industry actually did run. And so we came at everything more from like, oh, how do we make this work sort of perspective. And then it was
And
quite
being
interesting.
customers, I guess, as well.
Well, yeah, it's all just like it's yield management, right? Like, so it's like we need to get as many people into different classes at different times, and then you work out like what times work, what instructors work, what type of classes work, and you play Tetris basically. And then you have like, we created a strong brand that really stood out and differentiated itself in the market and made sure people had a good experience, basically. Still blows my mind how there's a lot of fitness offerings out there where the people like aren't very nice to you. Like, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's so weird. Like,
or,
surely,
or try once kind of intimidate you. Like, actually,
yeah,
this was going to be a question for later, is that I do see a lot of newer spaces popping. I live in London, so a lot of newer spaces popping up in
yeah,
town, and I'm like, that's intimidating. That doesn't look feminine, female friendly kind. And it is interesting, but they're really popular and very expensive.
very expensive. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There are
Mm.
a lot of the studios are run by men, and um yeah, like Joan and I, we're always referred to as the gym girls. But yeah, no, it is intimidating. It's terrifying. I mean, I've been to many a fitness class in my life, and I very much know what I'm doing. I'm a qualified trainer, but like, I am terrified going into a lot of places. Like, no
I
one's
think that's really validating for a
like,
lot of people listening.
no one's really like getting eye contact, and it's like, and I'm like, well, what equipment do I need?
Yes, no, that exactly. So I went to a class the other day. For the first time, they knew it was my first class, even though I'd been to loads of classes at this place. And they actually said, oh, are you happy with the equipment? Like, you need this, this, and this. And I was like, I came back and told my husband, because I was like, that doesn't happen outside of frame. Outside of frame, I was like, this doesn't normally happen. And it
Yeah,
is that. So I think it's very validating for someone like you to say that to people listening who don't have a gym and don't go to classes or a qualified trainer like yourself. And so
it's expensive. Like, we're actually probably shouldn't be saying this, but we're going to drop our prices slightly in January
oh,
because yeah, I know.
excellent. I shall be coming.
Buy a pack, because like actually it is expensive. We want people to come more. Like, genuinely want people to move more. Like, we're a B Corp. We're here to make impact. Like, we're not here to just make millions of pounds. And trust me, we're not. But like, it's about, that is a barrier, and most people like don't have £25 to spend on 45
Mm,
minutes exercise. That,
yeah,
like, it doesn't, a bar class hasn't even got any equipment. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it just seems slightly ridiculous. And it's great that there are brands that are very premium that do offer that, and that's perfect, and there's a space for it, don't get me wrong. But like, what we try to do is to be for the kind of like, the normal person that wants to do exercise, but it's not their life, and they have to fit that into their time, but also into their budgets. And you want to make it as accessible as possible so that people can afford to do it, because it genuinely makes a huge impact to people's lives. Like, we get the most amazing
genuinely.
feedback of people like, oh my god, like, you've got me through this like grieving period, or like, I've just split up with my boyfriend, or like, I was really struggling with sort of maybe some depression or something. But actually being able
Mm.
to come and move in a space that feels very kind of nurturing and welcoming, but also kind of fun and enjoyable. Like, I think it genuinely does make a huge impact to people's lives. So
Huge, huge, and never undervalue that. And
it's possible.
I love that you're aware of that, but also being a B Corp, that you truly want to reflect those values. Because I think the number of companies I've seen who are B Corps but don't truly represent the
Yeah.
values of being a B Corp, I've noticed. And I love that. You clearly are. Because I think it's an important, everyone wants to be, many people want to be a B Corp, but it comes with, you should truly reflect those values, which Frame clearly does.
Yeah. I mean, we've always had like sort of our core value proposition has always been about being accessible, welcoming, should fit seamlessly into people's lives. It should be fun, and it should be innovative. So like, do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of, and that's been since day one. And even when I write like decks now, it's like that slide
Back to it.
Definitely still the same, and I like our mission is still the same as it was on day one, like 15 years later. So it very much it's I guess we're just very authentic, and it has become a sort of an extension of like Joan and myself and our personalities. That is kind of what you get with Frame. It's human rather than, oh, I know that's a trend, so let's go and put like a pretty like logo on it and like make it a thing.
No, I love that, and you can tell. And back to you and Joan. You met in Cornwall. That's my home.
Yeah.
Is that right? You met in Cornwall?
Yeah.
So you're welcome. For the people of Cornwall, I had to throw that in. But what's it like then becoming business partners in reality with you guys? I mean, it's clear something's clearly working. We're 15 years later.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I guess like it was funny when we did meet. So I used to live with lots of Aussies and Kiwis, and she is a Kiwi. So she was like the Fulham crew. I was in the Brixton crew, and we all went to Cornwall for Easter, like to go surfing. And we were both like the two girls that wanted to surf because it was freezing, and we were like the last two standing like on the night out. And it was almost like just finding like a version of me that had just grown up on the other side of the world. It was like, like, I'm not totally bonkers and weird, because there is somebody else that has a very similar kind of attitude to life.
Amazing.
Both like played loads of sort of top level sport, but also like worked in advertising, had a business background. Like, it was quite weird to find your sort of doppelganger. But we went from meeting to being like, hanging out a lot, and then to starting to write the business plan within a month. Like,
wow. So it's always been kind of part of your friendship, really.
Exactly, which I think actually, like, often people ask this, and I think that is almost like a key to the success. I would always question, like, I've got many like friends that I think are incredible, like, and clearly very, very good at what they do, but I would be like a bit nervous about going into business with them because I value our friendships too much. And I just, like, I know now from, so many years of business that, and seeing other friends, I guess, who have business partners, like how that has worked out, which is not always as good. I don't know, like, when you're best friends, you're like, I wouldn't risk that.
Yeah, and I think it's something you're more likely to do it. I've got friends who I've worked with who have now become friends or even clients. And because we've always had work as part of our relationship since the start, I'd more likely do it with them because I know what we're getting into.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we met there, and we used to just like, we wrote a 65-page business plan, which Joan Joan, she blessed, like, it was so sweet. She actually moved back to Australia last year.
Wow.
Not here at the moment, but when she went, she gave me a like copy of the original business plan, which
that's amazing.
I know, we were reading through it and we were like, God, this is so funny. Like, we were going to open 5 studios, and we were going to, like, it was like, most of that's happened. Took a lot longer than
Took longer, yeah, I can imagine.
We got to 8, we come back to 5. But it was, we met and then quickly started working. And she's definitely, Joan's the entrepreneur. Like, I love like making stuff happen, and I'm like the host. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love making sure that people have a good time and wanting them to come back. Like, to me, that gives me joy. And Joan's definitely more of like the business entrepreneur. So kind of it worked well.
Compliment. So now she's in Australia. How does that work? Is she still very much in the business with you?
No, she's still in the business. We talk quite a lot. She actually just literally messaged me just then. We have, like board meetings on a monthly basis, and we talk all the time. But yeah. So
amazing. So how did you guys navigate, mum podcast time, how did you guys navigate your maternity leaves? Like, and also given how you started the business and it was your babies for a while, how was that experience for you? Who went first? Was it you or Joan?
Joan went everything, so I'll probably go next year. See, she's the entrepreneur. She is like new and like she's gone. So Joan went first. She had Zayden in 2000 and I'm trying to think, 14, so 13 it would have been. And it was actually really interesting because when she was pregnant with Zayden was when we kind of like had the initial realization that prenatal exercise was another issue that we needed to sort of sort out, because like you were
Love that, which also male founders wouldn't have discovered that. So this is another like
yeah, exactly. Well, we
amazing.
literally, I guess from day one we were our customer. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think that sort of really helped, especially in terms of the product and pricing and all the marketing. We are framers, like truly we are framers. We created this really quite selfishly so that we could do what we wanted to do, which is why
As a framer, I thank you.
it's like Pilates and sort of dance and rebounding and strength, because I like on different days I want to do all of those things. And actually we just went through this morning going through the January timetables, and it's like we're all like, oh, can we want that because we want to go to that teacher on that day. We are our target audience, and actually it's been really interesting. We have so many framers who have been coming in their 20s or early 30s, and then they have fallen pregnant, and we offer mumhood classes so they can continue to come to frame. And actually it's super interesting because most studios still don't really do anything for pre and post.
Oh, my gym doesn't, and it's a big national gym, and I only go to it because I'm not near a frame. And it doesn't do them, which is really interesting because it does a lot of kids stuff. It's a family one, and I did mumhood during COVID, obviously online, but I did do mumhood.
It's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, like there's you slightly reduce. It's not as profitable, I guess, is a thing because you can't have as many people in the class, or there's just not the volume of pregnant people that can all work out at 12:30 on a Tuesday lunchtime. But I guess we just sort of take the hit on that because we see it as a long-term sort of retention plan, I guess, but also coming back to that kind of genuine like mission of trying to make impact. Like we've both been pregnant twice. Like we know how much you need exercise during that time of your life, and postnatally. So we make it happen.
Did you guys take maternity leave during that, or like how did it work?
Yeah, so we actually it was quite funny. So I think I probably found out I was pregnant about a week after Joan had Zayden. So we literally tag teamed. Like it was so ridiculous. Neither of us took like very long maternity leaves because again, back at that point, we were very much in the business, like on a daily. I mean, I still am, but like we were very fundamentally like still in the studios. So Joe, we probably both took about 4 months off. I didn't really take any off because I didn't know how to do maternity leave. I was terrible, so I just went to work every day.
I feel you on that.
And I went back again, and I was like, well, that was a waste of a day. But yeah, we actually went to Australia or to New Zealand, where her family is, but for a few months, which was perfect. In hindsight, I wish I'd have done something similar.
So you could take the break, just move away.
So that then you can't just randomly go to work on a daily basis. And then she came back, and then we probably had like 2 or 3 months together, and then I went, but didn't really. And then we probably had about a year, and then she had her second Jayla, and then it all got a bit not complicated, but intense, because then we decided. So she came back from her second maternity leave, and at that point it was like, okay, we're gonna raise private equity investment.
Wow.
Which, in terms of like the timing, it was right in terms of like size and what we wanted to do, and we had a few sites that we wanted to open, etc., etc. However, then I became pregnant again, like basically at this exact same sort of. So both of my kids are like 9 months younger than Joan's kids. And so we were working on our sort of pitch deck, but also, I mean, I'm like going through that process of fundraising when I was pretty pregnant. And then I actually went from one of the pitches to the hospital and had a baby, literally straight away.
Oh my goodness.
Also wouldn't advise if anyone's listening. So that was quite a lot. And then we were very lucky. We got lots of offers, and we chose the investor that we wanted to go with. But then my mat leave from when I had my daughter Romilly was basically doing legal due diligence for the whole entire time.
Oh my goodness, that is not a fun part of business.
No. And I spent a lot of time. The the investor that we were working with, they use Mishcon, which is a very fancy lawyer in London, and we had to keep going to their offices for these very, very long meetings where I think on purpose they like basically don't give you food or drink. And I remember being, because my mum would come and like walk like my baby, who would have been like 3 days old or something, around, and I would just remember being there and being like, my boobs are leaking.
Boobs hurt.
And I'm just like, I don't really know what I can do right now. And I'm in this like huge room with like a board table that would probably take like 30 people, and all I can think of is the fact that I'm starving and I've got breast milk everywhere. So that was pleasant. But yeah, but then we did sign that deal. But then, as anyone who's taken sort of private equity investment would know, then it was just like, full on from that point, but not that it had ever not been full on. So it was.
Would you change anything about that time period?
I mean, in hindsight, it's probably changed a lot, but if we'd, you'd say, oh, you would have waited. But then if we'd have waited, then COVID would have hit before we'd have been able to open the studios and and so I don't know, everything happens for a reason. It felt like the right thing to do at that time.
I think that's it. It's the right thing to do at that time. I didn't really take, my maternity leaves look different to traditional ones, but you kind of have to go through a process of like, maybe that's just who I am and that's the right thing for me, and that's what you and Joan were like.
Hard, isn't it? Because I don't know, sometimes getting all deep now, but like, so I do really wish that I had longer, but then part of me wishes I could have like, I do joke, like when people I know have going off, and we've got a few girls that work for Frame, ladies who are on mat leave at the moment, and every time that they let me know that they're pregnant, it's like, oh, that's amazing, I'm really jealous. And I'm just like, I just want to have some time off. And they're like, do you want to have a baby? I'm like, no, I don't want another baby. I just want to like have a year off, like just hang out with my children.
You can do that, just do that.
Also, everything will look after itself, won't it?
Who needs to run the gym?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that I just have to keep going, because otherwise if I would stop and think about it too much, maybe kind of, get a bit emotional.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. It's something like you kind of have to do that in order to, I think, pave the way for others not to, daughters not to, and things like that.
I feel like we've got that sort of, like our sort of generation is in that kind of slightly tricky situation where we've been kind of told and promised that we can have it all, and we all know we can't, and you have to, something has to give. But my personality is that I don't want anything to give. So like certain people have a mindset where they're very happy to be like, I'm a career woman, that's what I'm doing, and I will pay for a nanny, and like this is how it works, and my kids will go to private school and like, whatever. That's not really me. Like I actually really want to be a mum. But I also really want to do my work.
I feel you. I think that's quite the entrepreneur way, because otherwise we'd be in really well-paid jobs so we could get the nannies. It's like, no, I want to do the school run and grow my business. Why can't I do both? It's hard. And I kind of feel, though, our generation is versus the people that came before us, while I'm grateful for what they did, we're a little bit more open of trying to do what we do, but try and make it easier for the next.
Yeah. It's funny because I've got a few friends who have had very good, like, really amazing careers and have potentially been made redundant, etc., because of their specific industries maybe aren't flying at the moment. And these are really super intelligent, like amazing women. And they're like, I think I'm going to set up a business. And they're like, can you like, will you sit down and give me some like tips and hints? And I'm just like, I think you should do it. Because they've got, these are people with like 4 and 6 year old kids, or like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, you will not see your children, like, because sort of we were saying earlier, like, was it better to do it when you were young and naive and stuff? Like, I think really, unless you've got so much cash that you can, like, from the start, pay a team to deliver your, like, your idea, and you kind of have to throw everything at it to make it work, And these are people that I know who want to be mums and be able to, like, take their kids horse riding 3 times a week, like they want to do that stuff. So I was like, like realistically, you probably won't get paid very much for a good few years until like it takes off, and secondly, you won't have like free time to like be having a lovely chill time because you'll be working. I mean, I still like work often till 11 o'clock at night to catch up, because if I've taken the time to like take my kids to like football practice or whatever, then I have to do that because things need to happen. So it doesn't stop needing to happen. It just means that I have to do it later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm with you. I've been doing a lot of that recently. And then I'm like, wow, I just did the school, I finished at 2:30, so I kind of have to. And especially when you're in a building stage, which I think we've
Yeah.
definitely been recently.
Yeah.
I think that's a really honest perspective, which I do think we sometimes need, or a lot need. Like I do that every time someone says, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't. Because it is how much time and effort it takes, and you've got to be really passionate, I think, as well. I think sometimes if you're doing it for life balance, maybe be a freelancer or flexible
Well, this is the
working.
thing. I think that's the thing. It's like if you want, like, go for it, because like, I mean, it sounds negative, but like the amount of positive things I've had and the experiences that I've had out of this journey have been like next level. So like I wouldn't change that for the world, because actually like the opportunities that have come because of it like have been amazing. But if work life balance, or a regular kind of decent paycheck, so you're not stressing about the bills, is priority, then probably like freelancing or get a job where you can sort of do a 9 to 5 might be a better option. But it's tricky, isn't it, with like, because we have kids like much later than we used to, so you sort of get, it's a lot of people like, you've got to that point in your career where you're actually like starting to actually like do some really interesting work, and you're like getting to a high up position, and then you take that time off, and then and then from that point where you've had your kids, you're constantly being torn like between, but like we should all just go back to having kids when we're 20. I think really should. 10 years of just like being a mum, then when they like secondary school and can kind of get themselves there and back and stuff, then we can go and have our careers.
And then we're like in our early 30s. We're not menopausal age either, so
maybe
we've solved it, Pip.
Solve a lot of other problems.
Exactly that. Yeah, no, there's other issues with that, but we'll ignore those for now if we're just looking on the positives kind of things. What has recovery looked like from COVID for you? Did you get any time with your kids during that period, or was it still just very intense?
But as COVID was like living hell, to be fair. It was because we were actually closed for 11 months, and then even outside of that we were not able to operate properly because we had huge restrictions on like the capacities in classes, etc. And also like,
of course,
nobody was like allowed out of the houses really, so
kept going in and out for a while, didn't we?
So yeah, it wasn't fun. We also had private equity, so there was like a lot of pressure from the investors. There was some pretty like not particularly nice stuff going on in the background, from sort of more that perspective. So yeah, it was hard, and we worked our asses off, and we flipped. So when we were shut down the first time, I worked with Linda, who works for us, and we were able to build our online offering. We did it in 7 days. We launched online for a paid on demand.
Well, I was going to say, as a customer, the online offering was very quick because I was online with mumhood.
It was. Well, do you know what? Actually, the interesting thing is that we had our online for mumhood already. So about 2 years prior, we had it's had its own website and its own online offering. So we sort of knew vaguely
how to do
it. So which is why, like, about a week before we went into lockdown, we knew that it was sort of coming, and we literally just like filmed, like, whilst we could still have people in a room. We just filmed as much as we could, so that then the week after we could get it all built, designed, blah blah blah, and then we and I guess this is the thing of having founders that are leading the business, is that you are agile and you just make stuff happen. And so we were getting revenue from our online from the first week, which was actually incredible, because everybody else just sort of went and started doing Instagram lives and that kind of stuff, which like had its place, but it if you're trying to then try and get people from that to a paid offering, which is the same, it's tricky. So we very much were like, we're not doing the free, we're going straight to paid. And it's cheap, it's not expensive, but it kind of, I think it did keep us going throughout that time. We had quite a strong live stream offering as well as our on demand, and like really, really engage people, because it was at that point, when we launched, we came in really hard, like the dance. And actually during lockdown, the few years before lockdown, fitness had got a bit more like intense, and everyone was like really into like hardcore HIIT and Barry's and like treadmills, and like it all became like hardcore. people that were getting fitter and they wanted that thing. And if, I just remember like someone had a marketing campaign that was like, sweat is fat crying. But that was the vibe of the time. And then in lockdown, we came out and we were like, let's dance.
Let's get joyful.
Let's have some fun. Actually, our dance classes just went crazy. And actually, it was really good because it totally differentiated ourselves from everybody else that were doing like, do 12 squats and 12 lunges, some burpees. Whereas like for Frame, people were coming to us because it was a release and an escapism, and like it was
and in their own house as well. They could do it without looking like a fool.
Well, exactly. No, but it's so true. Like we had, honestly, the people doing it was amazing. People that were like doing dance cardio, not who you'd expect. But also, everyone would be like, well, it's fine because no one can see me. Whereas that a lot of those people wouldn't, and we know this because we did a lot of consumer research, and they're like, yeah, we wouldn't do this in a studio with other people, but like in my kitchen, I'm here for it.
It worked well at the time.
Exactly, it had its moment. I'm hoping those people are still dancing around their kitchen now.
Me too.
But
I guess, were you homeschooling the kids? Was that like a whole thing you guys had to sort out as well? I guess it's the benefits of you both being parents is that you can just get it.
Exactly. Yeah, it was pretty tough actually. I'd actually moved. I live in Somerset, so we'd actually moved before COVID, which was great in the way we had space. So, and Joan was still very much in central London at that point. She moved out later, and so like, I mean, I could tell like being stuck in their house without really a garden was awful, as it was for many people. We did have a bit more space, but like, I mean, I was literally on calls from like 8 in the morning till 6 at night, like, and it was, and you've got I mean, my kids were at 2 and 5, like. It was mental. My kids definitely didn't get homeschooled, let's put it that way. They got
they got some lovely free time, which they don't normally.
I can't even, do you know what, like it's weird talking about this because I can't really remember what happened.
I find that a lot.
Blanked it all out. Like,
yeah, because we went through NICU and something traumatic. I've done a lot of therapy and healing, but then when I speak to others, they've like, I can see this look on their face that they probably need to do a bit of processing because they've blocked it out. And I think this is a really, really common theme we're finding. So you live in Somerset, and you come into London a lot, I take it, for the business. How does that work with your setup? What support do you have?
Amazing parents.
Excellent.
Yeah. Amazing parents and mother-in-law. And that's how it works. It's not ideal, I'm not gonna lie. But now I'm there, I don't know if I could come back because I do love it in Somerset. It's a pretty awesome place. The train is easy, so like Castle to Paddington is when it runs. It's fast, and you have a tray. You have like you've got the table, you've got your plug socket, you've got gin and tonic on a trolley. So it's kind of okay. It's very expensive. Pretty much all my money goes on train tickets.
I thought you were gonna say the gin then.
Not in the morning though.
Just to clarify.
When we moved there, and like genuinely, like we'd had the private equity investment, I thought that it would be 2 years and then I kind of wouldn't be involved on a day. I still would hope.
Interesting.
I would be involved, but not like in the same way. Like it was more of I would have been, 1 day a week or something. Whereas that's not happened. Because Joan and I bought the business back off our investors, so we kind of almost went back to being founders again, like proper like startup founders. It's not easy. We make it work because we have great parents. It's my husband also comes to London quite a lot. He works in restaurants, so it's a bit of ships in the night. You make it work, and like there are people in a lot worse off situations, and my kids seem happy most of the time. And when I am at home, I do pick them up from the school bus. Like we're so rural, they go on a bus, and so which if I was in London, I probably actually wouldn't do that any day because I'd be at work till 5, 6. So.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
guess make it work. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Absolutely. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents as a kid, and I do think that's wonderful.
They have an amazing relationship with their grandparents, which is it's really special. And I had a good relationship with my grandparents, but I didn't spend time with them like in this way.
Yeah.
So it's very lovely.
Oh, that's so lovely. You've just encouraged me to ask for help from them more. I'm like, don't you want this?
Need help. We couldn't do it without them because we can't afford like childcare in that kind of, you know, in the amount that we need it. So yeah, that's the only way that we can make it work. So hopefully one day I'll be able to pay them back somehow.
With, you know, ultimate love and cuddles from the grandkids. That's how they get it.
Spend time with those lovely children.
Yes. Oh, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. What I'd love to quickly ask you is like, what's your form of exercise? And I read somewhere recently, was it you that said this? Oh yeah, it was you that said this, that it's much easier to get into exercise and have a habit of getting into it if you love it. So how can someone find that? Like I just had to go back to what I enjoyed as a kid, which was dance and things, but not everyone has that. How would you recommend someone starts to find what is their exercise?
Good question. And I think it's very personal. Like, do you know what I mean? Like my sister loves running a marathon on repeat. You know, she loves it, and so she does it. So that's great. So
good for her.
Yeah, exactly. Well done, you. She can eat a lot of carbs. I personally, so I kind of mix and match, but my kind of 3 non-negotiable. This is tricky. This is why Frame has a very complicated business model. I do love Pilates, and I'd say I got really into Pilates after my first child as a way of recovering like my core strength, etc. And it has been a game changer. Like I've always been very strong and fast and athletic, but I've never necessarily had good movement patterns, if that makes sense. It's just been more like power, just sort of like go for it. Whereas now my body works correctly and it is aligned and it is, you know, like, which is what you'd hope to get from Pilates and doing regular Pilates. So that I like that for me is a non-negotiable because it kind of keeps you non-achy and well and, you know, free from injury. I love running. So I run once a week, sometimes twice at home. That's what I do when I'm at home, when there is no frame. I run with my neighbor, and it's like that for me
nice.
Is we just both like
a social thing as well.
Yeah, and it's therapy. Like it is actually therapy. And we run across fields and it's like this deep in mud and water and there's cows chasing us and it's like it's so country. But it is so cleansing for the soul. And like I would never run with like headphones and I just like it. For me, it's like just me and nature, and that is an incredible thing. And then I just love rebounding. Rebounding is my other non-negotiable. Like if you ever need to feel happy or just go and jump on a trampoline for 45 minutes.
Yes. I didn't know what rebound was, but I love that too. I do that weird place. That was something I do at Centre Parks if I ever go. If there's a class there and I'm like,
it's like one of those things. No one else has done it. I'm waiting for it to happen because like our rebounding classes at Frame are like fully booked. Like it is busy and it's hard, like physically it's hard, and it has many like physical benefits, like it's amazing lymphatic drainage, like incredible cardio workout, really good for your core, like, you know, there's like it's a really good workout, but more important than that, it's just so fun. Like you cannot like jump on a rebounder without just like smiling and whooping and like and it's not cheesy, like if you get the right, like it's like it's good. Like
okay, I'm gonna seek out your rebound class now. You've inspired me. I'll let you know.
Do it with Amber. She's my fave.
Okay. Are you allowed favourites?
No, we can't have favourites, but she's my favourite rebounding. And that's probably because I just haven't tried everyone else's, but she's good. And also works with my schedule. And I also just really like yoga. I do really like yoga, and I like doing yoga in a room with other people when we're all moving as one, and there's this like insane energy because of the breath. And I like a dynamic class where it's like you kind of are pushing yourself and you're like, oh God, this is hard, and then at the end you just like lie down on your back and you feel like, you know, I really deserve this like 2 minutes of doing nothing. And it's like it's quite it's amazing. And a lot of people say like, oh, yoga's not really going to come back after the pandemic because everyone's worked out they can do it at home and blah blah blah. And yes, to a degree, but like it's a very different from doing it by yourself with a laptop to like being in this room and that energy, and also like when the instructor comes and like moves your body and you're like, oh, okay, like now we're talking. Or like when they come and give you a little head massage at the end and you're like, I would pay just for someone to just do that. Like I'll
Yeah.
pay you 50 quid.
Oh, it's very different because on Friday I considered I can't get to the gym, so I was like, should I just do something at home or go to Frame? And I was like, it's different. I just like no, Friday afternoon I should be with other people doing
Yeah, it's
something, not at
sociable.
my laptop.
Yeah. I think that's like when we started, our whole thing was what, like it was this variety piece, fit seamlessly into your life, just like pop in and there's always classes on the schedule. Because, I mean, living more like out of central London, you probably realize like there's only very, specific class times. And you're like, well, I want to do it on now.
Yeah.
Like generally there is something on. But people like sociable, like doing it with other humans, and it's like an activity, and like it's that vibe that you get from what being in a room with other people, even if like you're not chatting to them and necessarily like
No, I'm not very sociable when I go to class.
necessarily like talk. You just need to be. And I think
I'm not there to make new friends. I'm just there to be around people.
it's so funny. We ran some focus groups quite recently, and pretty much that was like everyone was like, I really like the community at Frame. And we're like, okay, fine, let's do. Do you want us to like? Do you want to go for coffees, or should we do like? And they're like, oh no, I don't want to make more friends. They're just like that. There's lots of other really nice people in the room with me, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, good.
It's that weird human thing. I don't need to chat with everyone. I just need to know they're there.
And I like want to like breathe in their energy. I think that's the thing. It's like there is definitely over lockdown, and like so I've become much more sort of spiritual in terms of like I'm quite in tune with what's going on with the the planets and the moon and blah blah blah. And that kind of saved me in lockdown, to be fair. But actually I think there is something about this sort of like energy transfer that's good that goes on, and you can't, I mean, I'm sure there's some science behind it, but does it matter? It's like you know. Like,
I think as women, we don't need the science always. If we feel it, we feel it, kind of
exactly. Like we all need to go back, I think, a bit more to feeling rather than like having a watch to tell you whether you had a good night's sleep. Like, I'm pretty aware that I didn't. But
or it might have been good, but it was only 6 hours and I needed 10. Thank you very much.
Honestly, I'm the most untracking person in the world.
No, I don't have anything. I'm the last person.
That would stress me out. I'd be like, oh, I haven't done enough. I was like, some days you can't because you don't have time. So it's like, I think it adds an addition element of stress. Maybe I get that there are benefits of it, don't get me wrong, but like, yeah.
Sometimes if you feel tired, then that's all you need to know.
There is something just about being more intuitive with our bodies, right? And like actually being able to like understand how we feel and then choosing. And I think this is a big sort of, we're doing a bit of a brand refresh for the new year, and we're just dialing back in on like, how do you feel and how do you want to feel, and like choose the right type of class to kind of get you from A to B, or to get you to stay in A if you're already in somewhere that you want to be. But like you can use movement to to impact your whole body health, and to like be in control of like your hormones, and like you need to listen to your body, because what's good at a certain point in your life is not going to be good at another point in your life, or what's good at a certain point, like if your lifestyle changes, or like you're having to do extra work, or you're having to get up extra early, or you've just got a very stressful job at that point. Like it's different, and you should use these tools such as movement, nutrition, sleep, like supplements and stuff. You should use them depending on where you're at that time. You shouldn't just do Pilates because it's trendy. Although you should do Pilates because it's good for everybody.
It's good for everyone. I'm that boring person who says that to my friends.
It is though.
It's good for your core.
If you're exhausted and you've got a stressful job, don't go and do a HIIT class, because you're just like put more stress on your body, and your cortisol will spike, and you then will not lose weight. But also, like, hopefully that's not the reason you're doing it, but like it's not gonna actually solve that problem. Like what you need to do is go and do a class that's going to take you into your parasympathetic nervous system, where you can calm down and therefore have some sleep, and therefore like feel a bit better in the morning. So it's that education of using movement to sort of help feel or be how you would need to be at that point in your life.
So true. A human hormone doctor told me about a year ago, oh, you probably shouldn't really do HIIT classes because you've got little ones and you've got enough cortisol, you don't need to. And I was like, noted, forever. No HIIT classes.
Like we were just saying, right, like there was that period where everyone was doing HIIT classes, but like that was not healthy for a lot of people. And actually it's interesting, like, and for me it's not about losing weight or anything, but I actually, when I stopped doing really intense exercise very regularly and started doing more Pilates and yoga, and obviously still a bit running and rebounding, but like, and actually eating more, I actually lost weight like from not even thinking about it. It was just like just everything was like this, whereas I used to be like kind of like this. I'd be like crash burn like constantly, because I just push myself through everything, and then you'd like burn, and then you'd feel guilty, so then you'd go hard again. Like, you know, I used to remember like like waking up on a Monday, you know, if you had a big weekend, which we all used to do, I don't think anyone does these days, and like being like feeling really awful and be like, I've got to do like what's going to be the hardest thing I can do, because that's what I have to do, so that like I can like somehow like get rid of all of that badness I did on the weekend. But like then you're getting into this like terrible cycle.
I hugely agree with that, and it's so good to talk about it as well, because I feel like people will start to think about this, and it's about making, you know, your nutrition, it's a whole holistic area, isn't it, and finding what's right for you and what brings you joy as well.
What brings you joy, because I think actually if you're happy, a lot of things
fall into place
from that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so with exercise, like, I mean, there are definitely, depending on who like it is and their lifestyle and life stage, I would sort of recommend different things, but ultimately we just say like, you know, what do you love doing, and just do that, because you'll do it. Like, and if you don't love it, then it becomes a chore, and then you probably won't do it. So find something you love.
Love it. Oh, that's such good advice, Pip. I feel thank you so much. I've loved today's episode, and huge fan of Frame. Where can people find you, Pip?
We are in Shoreditch, King's Cross, Victoria, Hammersmith, Angel, so all in central London, our studios. But we also have an online offering, which is actually really good, I have to say. Like, our instructors are awesome, and they have great personalities, and I think that actually comes across in the videos. So, and they're just more interesting than a lot of online videos. So I'd highly recommend anyone, if you're out of London, getting involved in that. I use them like when I'm at home all the time.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're great.
Agreed. And can you share anything about what's next for Frame?
Well, as I said, in January, we've got a bit of a new look and feel, but that's all linked to a bit of a new idea that we've got, we've sort of been touched on here, but sort of like high on hormones, and really focusing our offering as to how you feel, what your need state is. And we've created some super classes that kind of match each need state. So if you need to find your energy, we've created a class called Flow State, which is all about finding energy without kind of pushing yourself to the point where you've got that cortisol spike. So really nice sort of steady class. We've got a super class for strength as well. So strength and mobility, where you actually get a full 30-minute mobility flow to like really open up before you go into strength workout. And then we have one called the Big Let Go, which is for those people that are feeling stressed, anxious, and it takes you on a journey. So rather than it being just like a sort of sound bath or a yin class where you come in and you go straight to the mat, this is taking you from up here. We're bringing in a lot of shaking and an element of ecstatic dance to get rid of all of that like stagnant, horrible stuff. And then it's sort of a journey sort of down, and then you'll end in a lovely sort of sound bath at the end. So yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely checking that class out. I can't wait.
It's really
After I've seen Amber.
Really want to move away from like, oh, is it dance, fitness, whatever. And we're actually like, you know, let's create these sort of super classes that do the job that we want them to do.
And it's about how you're feeling, I guess, rather than just
all about how you're feeling.
Introduced in that.
Yeah.
Love that. Oh, that's so
exciting. We're doing a little quiz, so when you go on there, you can click a few buttons, and then the timetable will filter to recommend the classes that would work based on how you're feeling.
That's exciting. I can't wait to go do the quiz. Oh, well, thank you so much, Pip. It's really inspiring, as well as really real on what it's like to be a business owner and motherhood journey. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to find out more about Frame next year.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting.
Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.